I want to welcome everybody to the Lawo breakfast session this morning. So feel free to come, gather around, take a listen. For those watching later, thanks for joining us. You could be anywhere at this time, but you came to join us, so thank you. My name's Tony Staires. I'm the sales director here at Lawo, and I had the pleasure and honor to interview one of my friends in the industry, Raum. We've been connected for a long time. We work together, and we transitioned in kind of in the industry and done projects together ever since. It's been great to work with you, but for people that don't know you, maybe introduce yourself. What do you do? A little bit about your background, and yeah.
Sure, yeah. My name is Raum. I'm a senior engineer for BeckTV. We're a systems integrator. Primarily, I work in the sports venue space, and I primarily work with 2110 implementations. So Tony and I started way back together before before 2110 was a ratified standard. We worked in IP, and we learned a lot together early on, right? And we grew from there. So I've been in sports my entire life. I've been very fortunate to work with IP builds before 2110 was a ratified standard, and it's pretty much exclusively what I do now is sports deployments of large-scale 2110 control rooms.
Yeah, what I've always appreciated about you, and we're similar in that we're both operators. We worked in control rooms. We worked in live environments. Transitioned over to IP and helping customers with solutions and things like that. But like you said, we've been working in IP for a long time, but before 2110 was really a thing. So for us, it feels like old news, right? Like we've been there, done that kind of thing, but there's still a lot of people considering 2110, considering IP deployments. So do we feel like we're at a tipping point where people should really kind of start considering it over SDI? Where are we right now that you feel?
Yes, yes, I do think we're at a point where, early on, anytime you're on the bleeding edge of a technology, the cost is a lot higher, right? There's a lot of R&D that needs to be made. There's not a lot of scale in the industry yet. We're at that scale now, right? And it's to the point now that you should really price check a traditional baseband router versus, even if you're saying to yourself, man, I don't have any 2110 devices, I don't have any plan to have any 2110 devices, you should still look at an option that includes a COTS switch, and gateways to wrap your baseband I/O, because I think you'll be surprised by the price and how competitive it is with a traditional baseband system. And the flip side of it too is a lot of these devices, okay, right now we're all baseband, we're rewrapping everything, but a year down the road you get 2110 native switchers. Okay, that opens up a lot of gateways and a lot of I/O that you can distribute other places. It's no longer just like, here's my router in the frame, it lives in this rack right here, right? So it's less of a sunk cost for 2110 than it was in a traditional baseband environment.
So, we're saying, hey, you should at least consider it. Where do people get hung up when they think about IP? What is the biggest hang up? What is scary to people?
I think a lot of people think,
get them over the hump.
I think a lot of people think like, well, I'm not a network engineer. How could I manage a 2110 system? But as somebody who's deployed and designed a lot of 2110 systems, the issues you deal with day to day are not network related, right? Once the switch configs are set, they generally don't change unless you're adding gear, right? And even then, that's not a huge change, right? You set up the OSPF, you set up your layer 3, you set it all, you set up your PTP. You do that on the installation phase, hopefully with a partner like Lawo and an integrator, right? And they make sure they get all that right. The problems you're facing on a daily basis are the same problems you're facing right now in your place. Layer 1, right? Dirty fiber, maybe an optic burnt out. Everybody thinks when they lose a signal in 2110, oh, it's a PTP problem or it's this massive multicast issue, and 9 times out of 10 it's not that. It's somebody unpatched you, an optic might have burnt out, the end device is in a frozen state, normal stuff that you deal with in the baseband worlds. But we've had a lot of clients that were not, couldn't wrap their head around a switch config, and they don't have to, right? And they run their plants extremely successfully. They need to know how to monitor their 2110 fabric, right? But they don't need to get in and make wholesale changes to the configs in a world that they're just not in every single day.
So we've been working together for a while. So we worked together at a studio, and we kind of worked we worked with Lawo kind of there for a little bit, and we've been able to do some deployments together. and kind of build a relationship just outside of a a production environment, now an integrator to a manufacturer in that partnership. What is, how does that benefit you guys at Beck? And what do you look for in a strong partnership with a manufacturer?
We really look for support, right? Every single manufacturer, their product's going to be different. The deployment's going to be a little bit different. What we don't want as an integrator is to be left in the dark. Like, hey, there's this one feature I really need working. It's not working. I know you guys have it, but I just can't implement it. The support we get from Lawo is tremendous, from the project management team to the sales side to everybody top down. The Lawo, we get extremely invested in our projects, and Lawo has that same investment. It's not just a sale. They give us a tremendous amount of support. And the flip side of it is Lawo's been doing 2110 for a very long time.
Yeah.
Right. So I personally don't have to worry about, like, is their NMOS going to be compliant? Is it going to work? Is their 2110 going to be compliant? Are they going to have the flexibility on the timing I need for what I'm using, in PTP? Is their stuff going to lock to it? Those just aren't concerns I have when coming to Lawo.
So again, the history with Lawo, you've seen us transition from being a primarily audio company and audio focused, selling consoles in an IP environment, to moving more into video 2110, and now this transitioned into a COTS platform. And we've been able to do a project based on that our home apps platform. Kind of give me your thoughts as we've seeing us move into that, what the benefits are, and how it's worked for you thus far.
Yeah, I think we're at a real tipping point in the industry when it comes to traditional FPGA-based appliances and CPU-based and GPU-based appliances. And I don't think FPGA appliances are going away, right? There's inherently less latency in an FPGA, no matter what, right? And there's scenarios, gateways, right? Like, you want it to be as low latency as possible. But there's plenty of things that and it's a minimal amount of added latency, right? But if you're doing a UDX, you're going to have latency anyway, whether it's FPGA based or whether it's...
Absolutely.
But the COTS model of being able to say, hey, here's your license, especially on the Flex stuff, being able to spin up and down applications that you need,
right.
And then we're in a world right now where everybody's dealing with the RAM and hard drive price increases, right?
Absolutely.
But with that said, a lot of people and a lot of clients already have hypervisor VM clusters on site that some of the stuff can already run on as long as it meets the spec, right? You
Absolutely.
don't have to go out and buy a new server necessarily to run this if you already have the compute, right? And there's a ton of value there as a client if you're trying to, if you're trying to manage your budget, manage your shows, especially if your shows don't need every single utility all the time, right? That's where the flex credits are
right.
really valuable. It's spin this up for this show, spin it down, that flex credit goes back into your account. And it's like, one day I need, NDI to 2110 or whatever, or an SRT transmitter, and the next time I need an extra audio shuffler for this or that. That to me is what makes the COTS up, spinning up and down apps. It's the way I think the industry is moving. I think you guys are on the bleeding edge of it, the forefront of it. And I think it's only a benefit to the consumer and to people's workflows.
So, we're kind of referencing a project here that we got to do together, which is University of Nebraska Husker Vision. And let's talk a little bit about that project. I mean, they started as an audio customer, to kind of get their feet wet into 2110. They seemed to like the solution from us, and we built that on the home platform, knowing there was going to be a video plant refresh in the future. So we kind of paved the way for them when it came to doing the full IP plant rebuild. So maybe give us a quick high-level overview of the project, and then we'll kind of do a little bit deeper dive into some of the decision-making,
Yeah, Husker Vision was a very large project, full 2110 distributed campus 2110 network, multi-venue support, large amount of gateway I/O. It's a true mixed format plant. It's 12G and 1080p both, which was really one of the bigger challenges for this plant, is making that interop really seamless for The end user, there were 3 control rooms, 2 main large control rooms, and a smaller tertiary control room for press conferences, smaller sports. They'll do big screen out of one, broadcast out of another, press conference out of another. All 3 are working a lot of the time. And it was a special project for me. I'm a Nebraska alumni. I went to college there. Husker Vision started my career. The N on the side of the helmet in Nebraska stands for knowledge, if you didn't know that. So I'm very grateful to Nebraska. So it was very cool for me to be able to go back there and help rebuild the rooms and help, students launch their career in the industry.
Yeah, so speak a little bit to that. I didn't have this in my set of questions, but I was very surprised about how much they're utilizing students in this environment.
Yes.
So high technology, new technology in the market, but designed in a way where students can get into production broadcast, utilize great equipment day in and day out, REMI deployment. There's a lot of things that, you wouldn't see until you get to what we would say big broadcasts, but students are doing it.
And they don't tiptoe around it either. They let their students into everything. And their motto, and I love it, is there's nothing you can break on a config side that we can't fix, right? So break it. Go get in there. They have students that are, building multi-viewers, building audio mixes, doing salvos and routes and setting whole shows, and they're not shy about letting students do that. First of all, there's only so many engineers, right? Everybody wants help. And if the students can help, that's great. But the flip side of it is if you let students touch that stuff early, they're going to go onto the field, they're going to go into a truck that has a bunch of Lawo, and they're going to say, hey, I know this already. I've been there, done that, and they have a base that's a lot stronger than a lot of their competitors coming into the market, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, we heard that over and over from the leadership there of being able to enable students. So we realized pretty quickly, like, a baseband plant really wasn't the right fit. We really needed to go to 2110. Why was that? Just maybe a quick answer of I think
we
can't go SDI here.
There's a lot of benefits to 2110, but one of the biggest benefits is being able to distribute your load across multiple venues, right? And being able to have high bandwidth links. Not necessarily, you don't have to put a leaf switch everywhere, right? That's an easy way to do it, but a lot of cases don't require a leaf switch. But just being able to have 100 gigs to and back from a venue, that gives you a ton of I/O and a ton of ability. Whereas a baseband, you can do that, but you're multiplexing. You don't have as much insight into what's going on, what's coming back and forth, being able to troubleshoot things. So I think 2110 on a college campus is really the kind of ideal scenario for 2110, right? It's the poster child for 2110 of look at all these venues, look at all these spaces you have to do shows out of, do all the returns out of, and you need the flexibility to move stuff in and out, maybe drop an IPG here this day, a stage box here this day, an IPG here this day. So baseband, you could do it right, but you're utilizing a lot more fiber, you're utilizing a lot more infrastructure, which if you've ever worked on a college campus, usually they aren't putting in fiber for the broadcast team, right? You're begging and borrowing and stealing from IT, hoping that they have dark fiber left over, which is never the case. To some of these venues, these guys might have 2 strands and that's it, and they have to do everything on it. So 2110 really simplifies that workflow for them and makes it easier for them to do these shows and deploy what they need in the field.
They're doing basically a complete REMI model. It's 5 facilities across the campus, all connected back to a central broadcast. And then their abilities within home apps, like you said, to spin up and spin down applications based on need or grow very easily because they're built on a COTS platform.
That was a big selling point. They were already on home for the audio, right? So it was a very natural transition to be like, okay, Lawo makes a lot of sense. We're already on home. There's a cost savings there, right? Because again, we talked about it. They already had the compute, right? They didn't need to invest in more compute for a controller. There was a little bit to put VSM on, but for home apps, they didn't. They added a couple servers. Well, they added quite a few servers for the home apps, but the home control, they didn't have to add anything for that. But that was a big selling point, was being able to spin up and spin down, because they have shows by season, right? For baseball, they might need this home app, right? But they don't need it for volleyball in the fall, right? So being able to spin that up and spin that down and not have a permanent license for a utility they're only using 3 months out of the year, is a huge selling point. And it was really a driving factor in this.
So were any unique challenges to this project?
Yes.
That we kind of tell me about it.
There's a lot of customer furnished gear. Budget was very top of mind, as it is for everybody, right? They wanted to be 12G on their output. They wanted native 12G cameras. They had a lot of legacy 1080p gear coming in that they were using, graphics, things like that needed to be able to interop in the environment. So there was a lot of coordination on being a true mixed format facility. They had 12G endpoints, they had 1080p endpoints, they had 12G sources, they had 1080p sources. Everything had to come in, marry up at the switcher, come back out. And when you're building that workflow, right, you really have to, it's a large puzzle. And the end user, you don't want the end user to have to stress about the signal type on the end. You just want to be able to click and route, especially if you have students doing it, right? You don't want to be like, hey, you can't route 12G there. You can only route it here, right? And so building those in VSM and building those layers and having the up-down cross and having, a lot of devices that could accept 12G or 1080p at the exact same time and intermix between them was huge. And I think it was extremely successful. They rarely have to think about their signal type, only when a truck comes in, and they need to flop from 720p to 1080i on their outputs or 1080p.
So essentially, you're just demystifying the complexity of the back end, right? You're exposing to the end user. If they want to do source destination tag, they can do it. They don't have to think about what's in the back end and be able to build that in VSM, and that logic was able to just enable you to be flexible in the project. What are you proud of about it? Obviously, you're an alum. You got to go and kind of, they think a lot of you and kind of what you bring to the industry. So, but I'm sure there's something special about the project.
I'm extremely proud of the relationships I got to build with the students while I was there. I got to do a lot of training with them. I got to see them and support them through a lot of shows. And I worked with students a lot in my time at my previous job at Notre Dame. And it's the number one thing I missed from that job. And it was so reassuring to see a large amount of students that were so invigorated about the industry and excited to go into this industry. And I think we get a lot of doom and gloom, right? There's a lot of us aging out of the industry, and it's like, oh, who's going to come in and replace these roles in this industry and take it to the next level? And I just saw 20 to 40 students at Husker Vision, where a good portion of them, their whole goal is they want to go into this industry. They want to learn as much as they can. They want to do the big shows. They want to do the big builds. I was extremely proud of that. It was great to see, and it makes you feel a little less doom and gloomy about the industry on that side of things.
Yeah, I think we both can speak to this. I will, speak on behalf of Lawo. We're always looking for talent, right? And especially in this new wave of technology where, you need people that have both a basis in production, but a basis in COTS, IT, IP platforms, things like that. And I think, a younger generation is probably more equipped than anybody to do it, and just give them, like places like Husker Vision to give them that platform is just incredible.
Yeah, that's the thing I'll say is the kids are out there who want to go into this. It's just they're not always getting the platform. So whatever you can do on your end out there in the field to get these kids in college right now involved in the platform and get them to touch high-end gear, get them to touch the gear we use on massive productions every single day, it's only going to help them. There used to be, I always say that when I was coming up, I couldn't get a lot of people to teach me anything because people were afraid that they were that somebody's going to take their job, right?
Yeah.
We're in the opposite now. We need these kids to come in and take our jobs, right?
I think we've said it before. We've got to be door holders and not gatekeepers,
exactly.
Right? And so I think we've probably had a few people in our life that did that for us, and we got to continue to do that for students and people that want to come and be involved. So shifts are happening in the industry. You hear, acronyms, DMF, MXL. There's shifts going on. What do you see? What's positive? What's happening?
I think MXL and Kubernetes, I mean, we're doing that a lot on a lot of appliances now, right? And I know we're just going to throw out, I said, like, we're sitting here trying to demystify 2110, and then we're throwing out new standards and Kubernetes and things we haven't used in this industry a lot before.
Right.
But again, the whole point of MXL and these standards and everything we're putting about it is to demystify it, and make it. I'm never going to say it's plug and play, right? Like it's just not. But the same could be said for
moved beyond
broadcasts.
Plug and pray.
We're beyond plug and pray, right? I think we're a little ways off on MXL. I think the promise is great. There's a lot of standards that really need to be ratified around that and figured out, like on orchestration and a lot of other things. But it makes a lot of sense. IT kind of moves it forward, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, why wouldn't we use that here? Why wouldn't we build platforms based on that? Why wouldn't we do more containerized Docker, Kubernetes clusters with MXL and sharing that media on the exchange layer as opposed to going out 2110 and back in just on a cluster that's right there already. So a lot of that's going there. Everybody seems to be talking about AI. I still think, AI is not a all-encompassing solution, right? It's a tool, just like everything else we're using, right? It's going to work really well in some implementations, and it's not going to work well in others. And we just need to treat it like another product and another tool, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things, from getting packets on a wire around AES67, 2110, whatever it may be, to MXL, AI. I was discussing with somebody the other day. These are all just enablers for efficiencies, right? Things
Exactly.
like DMF. You need MXL, to give you that dynamic nature of your facility. And so I think it's just kind of taking a step back and not looking at the technologies themselves, but looking at them as an enabler to get to something that's more efficient, that's better run.
That's the perfect way to say it. Yeah, it's about efficiency, right? Nobody's trying to create complexity for complexity's sake. I guarantee you that. It's not fun. Everybody's trying to distill it down to make everybody more efficient, make deployments more efficient, make resources more efficient, and that's the way the industry is pushing.
So I have sales in my title, so I'm going to get a little salesy here. And you tell the people out there why they should come see us this week. Like, what is something you're seeing here that they should come see and talk to us about?
Yeah, I think home apps are the future of the industry. I think Lawo is way ahead of the curve on that. I think the beauty of home apps, right, is you have however many you have now, and next year you're going to have more, and next year you're going to have more, right? So the value there, especially if you're on like a flex credit model, is like, okay, you didn't have this app before, but now you do, and I can just spin it up. Like, I think home apps can create a tremendous amount of value in a workflow, but you have to think about your workflow differently. It's no longer like, I have this frame sync here with this amount of UDX and this amount of, HDR tone mapping and blah, 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 right? It's really opened up to doing more than just having this piece of gear that might sit unused for 6 months. Right. So definitely come and see home apps. The Dot Edge is a great gateway. It's solid. It's reliable. The new smaller edge device, a little bit more like StageBox for video, right? And it makes sense coming from an audio company.
Exactly.
Right? StageBoxes have been around forever.
We had to put a little audio in it just to give people that flavor.
And it makes sense. It's no longer a gigantic 19-inch rack mount piece of gear. You can throw it under a table. You can throw it in a desk. So yeah, I think Lawo's got a lot to be excited about and a lot to see.
Man, I appreciate you coming and hanging out. You got a busy booth I know you got to get back to, but taking time out of your morning to share some knowledge, share a bit about a project that we did. I mean, I'm so grateful that you come by and do this for us, and let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
And have a good one. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.